Welcome back to the Respect the Drive podcast. I'm Tedward here at Garage 42 in Acton, Massachusetts, where I store my cars. I've got 3 cars here right now, actually, and I'm coming in today to pick up the M5. I called Edwin, who manages all the operations here at Garage 42 yesterday to say, hey, look, it's time. I got to take it out. And he's like, yeah, about damn time. And I do feel like the what's the old saying? Like the cobbler has no shoes. I drive so many cars for my job. And that means that my own cars kind of get neglected. So he was happy that I was coming to pick up a car. We got to get the M5 out soon. And it got me thinking about family cars as well, because I was just on a little, well, let's do some ad reads first. We'll get into this. Garage 42 is a phenomenal place where if you do not have the space or bandwidth or energy to deal with your fleet, you can come and store them here, especially for those winter storage customers that maybe have space limitations in their neighborhoods. It's tough to store a bunch of cars in the city, or if you want to have them out of the snow during the winter time, which I don't know why I'm talking about this in June, but it's what I think about all the time because winter is what makes New England, and we basically plan around that. But this gives you the opportunity to keep your cars safe and out of the way and leave open your garage bays for the cars that you're driving day to day so you don't have to clean the damn snow off all the time. I also want to give a shout out to Mike's Auto Body North because they did such a phenomenal job on my Lexus hood when I had a tiny baby stone chip that started rusting. They took care of it in the most outrageous. They paint matched the hell out of this hood. It's incredible. So anyway, Mike's Auto Body North. I've seen them do everything. I can't even name the customers because some of their they pull in like McLarens and PTS Porsches and all kinds of wild stuff. So this is the place. This is no joke. When you've got a good body guy, you've really got to appreciate what you have. So reach out to Mike's Auto Body North if you need anything done on your cars and you need it done the right way. You get a little ding on a door and somebody repaints it and it's the wrong color. That's the worst. I hate that. I just filmed a car recently that I didn't know until I saw it on camera, but in person, it all looked uniform. But then on camera, I saw that the door was this is a perfectly like restored vehicle too. So it was very strange to see this. But yeah, sometimes the paint just don't match. And when you're with Mike, it's gonna look pretty damn good. So quick shout out to Mike. Love to see it. And also in-house at Garage 42, I'm going to preemptively plug these guys, Walden Camper Vans, because if you're looking for a little vacation and you want to do some excursion-y things out in some campgrounds or somewhere a little more off the beaten path than you can find with a hotel or an Airbnb, Walden Camper Vans, they've got these insanely nicely outfitted like Mercedes Sprinters. They've even got a Defender with a roof tent if you're looking to do something a little more adventurous. But this is like the perfect level of glamping where you can get in. Anyone can drive these because we're not talking about some big RV. Again, insane that you can drive big RVs on the road because that's the reason we're allowed to drive the toter home. It's a loophole basically because the toter home, although being a literal semi-truck, is an RV. And that gives us in the state of Massachusetts the ability to drive that vehicle despite its weight and air brakes and all that kind of stuff. But this is not that. Walden Camper Vans has really nice Mercedes Sprinters. They're easy to drive. Anybody can get in this. And a lot of people they get in, they head straight up to Acadia National Park in Maine, and they have a blast, and it's great for everybody, whether you're like the influencer trying to get the photo of the sunset over the mountains in a dewy meadow, or if you're just somebody who needs to get the hell out of the city, get away from people, which I understand. But yeah, call up Mike at Walden Camper Vans, or just go to the website. It'll be on the thing. And Grid Forge, they made me these glorious coasters that have the Tedward logo on them. That was really nice of them. That's cool to have in the podcast studio. And also they do these great plaques with topographically accurate track maps. So they 3D print like the Nürburgring, and it's the coolest thing. You can have them do all kinds of custom stuff. They also did my key trays. So thankfully I need these. They sent me these key trays because I lose my keys all the time, and it's nice to have them organized. And I actually have like logos of each car that I own, so the keys just stay where they need to go. And I've been pretty good about putting them back. Anyway, let's get back to the cars, because the reason I'm thinking about family cars recently, and I don't know if I teed this up correctly, because this is very stream of consciousness, and I walked into the building and I thought I need to have this conversation because I was just on Cape Cod, down the Cape, as we say in New England, with my whole family, my parents, my sister, my brother-in-law, and their new little baby. Well, she's getting to be a toddler. It's kind of weird. I'm not a kid guy, but I like my niece. She's pretty cool. She's 16, 17 months old, and she's walking around everywhere. And what we know, we took three, I'm a little embarrassed about this. We took 3 cars, okay? Part of that is because of the scheduling. You know, my sister lives up in Maine, so they drove down in their 4Runner, roof box, dog, baby, stuff, 3 people in the car. It's a lot, right? So there's a lot going on there. I drove down in my Lexus GX 460 because I had my bicycle. For those of you who are anti-cyclist, I apologize. I'm back on 2 wheels, but I bought this great Specialized SL7 comp. It's green. It's wonderful. I'm having a blast. It's a great way to stay in shape, as they say on Family Guy. And that takes up room because I don't have a bike rack on the car. I don't have one of those, like trailer hitch things, which would be fine, but I don't know. It's a little scary to put like $5,000 worth of bike hanging off the back of your vehicle. Don't love that idea, but it would make more space inside. So what I've been doing is I've just been cramming the bike inside the Lexus and in the Honda. The Civic Type R is large enough. You put the rear seats down, shove that bike in there. Don't even have to take off a wheel. Pretty friggin' sweet. So I took that and my stuff down there because I knew we were going to be out on the beach around some beautiful roads. And, you know, the game of cycling is like, just don't get hit by nightmare drivers during rush hour. So being on the Cape is really nice for that. And then my parents came down and they were only going to stay like a night or 2 of the 4 or 5 nights that we were there. So they took their own car. So whole Toyota fest down there because they've got the RAV4 Prime, my Lexus, and my sister and my brother-in-law's 4Runner. But it got me thinking about what the family car has become and what it used to be. And I don't want to do this in some waxing poetic, like, oh, let's bring back the sedan. It's just like an observational change. And also what we consider to be like a collectible, cool thing to drive now. SUVs. My goodness, they have really taken over. And SUVs were cool for a while. Like they were just like, oh, wow, your family's got a Suburban, your family's got an Escalade. Like it was a choice. It was like it was a real statement in the 90s and the early 2000s and stuff. But then it just became so ubiquitous. And despite the fact that safety was a concern, because you got to remember, like I know there's always the person out there who's like, I've been driving my Bronco 2 for, 30 years and I've never rolled it. And it's like, I understand, but a lot of people did, okay? And the point isn't that you can ride a bicycle without a helmet and survive. The point is that statistically, more people don't. And that's a problem, right? And also Ford had to pay out somewhere and don't quote me on this, I'm not trying to get any legal action here, but I think they had to pay out somewhere near $1 billion in like settlements on rollover accidents with those cars. So, but Americans were undeterred. They wanted off-road capability, despite the fact that they weren't going off-road. And they wanted the sense of like freedom that came with these vehicles, despite the fact that they also were slow and not agile. And I just thought that was strange. But I grew up with sedans and station wagons. Okay. So like my dad had an 89 Volvo 740 wagon. It had the way back seats that faced outside the back, which meant that when I was a little kid, I was the little shit making faces and hand gestures at people in traffic on our way on vacations and stuff, because we would be just facing traffic. Now, this like obviously is not the safest thing. I think Ford Taurus and Mercury Sable wagons had these as well. Not the safest thing in the world, because if you get rear-ended, like these are 80s frames, you probably just crush your children at that point, because like your feet are pretty much on the hatch the way this is set up. So I'm not saying that's the safest thing either, but what we did was we seemingly made do with like what we consider now to be like small cars. And I'm looking out over Garage 42 right now because I'm here specifically to pick up my M5 for a little afternoon jaunt, get some lunch, put some miles on it, make some assessments about what I'm going to do with this suspension. But I'm thinking about how like today, even I've fallen into the trap of a daily driver SUV. And now I look at people who daily drive sedans as like, oh, what a legend. What a hero for driving like an average car. Now, like I have my Civic Type R, not a small car. In fact, I'm looking at it right now. It's stacked above my M5, and it is objectively bigger. It's bigger than my M5. And my dad even said today, he's like, oh, you're going to go get the Type R. It'd be nice to have the little Civic back. The little Civic. It's not little. It's a pretty big, spacious 4-door hatchback. And it is just odd to me that if you met someone today who is like daily driving like an Audi A4 or something, it would be like a younger kid or someone who's like committed to that like lifestyle of a sedan. And now it feels like more of it's almost like driving a sedan or like a normal sort of car, like a car, not an SUV, a CUV, a car. It almost feels like that's like this day's equivalent of choosing a manual transmission, because it's just ubiquitous that you buy the Honda HR-V or the RAV4 or the Audi Q5 or whatever. Like this is so weird to me. And I do understand that when it's not about keeping up with the Joneses anymore, it is about a general sense of safety and stability, because it is intimidating to be on a road with big vehicles. I mean, you think about what's going on in terms of weight. EVs are heavy vehicles, right? Like, so even though we've got EVs on the road and they're very efficient and they can do all kinds of great things, they're still heavy cars. Like my M5 is 4,000 pounds, which in 2001 was a pretty damn heavy car. In today's math, that's like normal. That's like average. You can buy a Silverado EV which is like 9,000 pounds. A Hummer EV is like close to 10,000 pounds. These are the point. You're at the point now where your consumer vehicle is something that you need to start learning to check road signs for bridges in rural areas, because you may exceed the weight limit. Like, this is bonkers. And I don't know how far this goes, because the roads aren't getting any wider. I keep noticing on these little back roads that I'm driving on my way home from the gym that I have people coming at me crossing double yellows in like Ford Super Duties or, big pickup trucks and things like that. Or just like a Tahoe, right? Like average person. It's not a weird thing for a person to drive a Tahoe, but they are wide, pretty large vehicles. And I don't know that everyone's really trained to like position these vehicles on a narrow lane. And I'm finding myself having to really hug shoulders because someone else doesn't really have control over the car. And this is just a frustration. And I was going to make this into a segment that I was going to call, and another thing, cars are getting too wide, because I want everyone who comes on this podcast to like be able to rant. I think that's such a New England thing to do. To bond over something you hate is the most, at least Bostonian thing, because we're very kind people. We will help you, but we will let you know how we feel, which is kind of antithetical anywhere. That's not the case anywhere else. If I did live in the South for a little while, and everyone's just like, oh, would you like to join our church? And this, and everyone's very nice, where it's just like, here, we're like, what are you all about? What are you trying to scam me out of something? That's the deal. But what I'm noticing is that all these, and another thing, all these cars are just getting really big and wide. And I know I'm not telling you anything groundbreaking, but what's groundbreaking to me is now that when I'm looking at a 7 Series, I'm looking at two full-size Jags, I'm looking at a Cadillac, like CT6, I'm looking at my M5, and I'm thinking, man, like these are now real choices to drive cars, to just like a family car. I'm not talking about a sports car. I'm not talking about like a 2-door M3 or anything like that. I'm just talking about a car. Even a full-size like luxury sedan is a large car. And now that is looked at as like, well, you'd really have to make a choice for that, because how would I fit all my stuff or whatever? It's just so odd to me. And it wasn't unusual in the 90s that your dad had like a diesel Rabbit, and it was just a little baby car and it did the job. Now, I get it that we have different levels of standards for safety and like cars have gotten safer, but road deaths haven't gone down. Think about that. Cars have gotten safer, but road deaths haven't gone down. I don't know. I'm not going to speculate on what that means. And I will say that, like, if you were to, fall asleep behind the wheel and put your new Honda into the trees, you're probably a lot more likely to survive than you were in like a Chevy Cavalier in 1992. Yes, 100%. But colliding with other cars is kind of a big problem because everything's super heavy, has a lot of momentum. Just remember your high school physics classes. But I'm having a little bit of a hard time when I review these cars because I do love, look, I love a Suburban. I love an Expedition. I love big things. It's fun. One of my favorite things to do is drive the toter home when we go to these grid life events. It's so much fun to have a big, heavy machinery. And that's been a dream since I was a child, because who doesn't look at a construction site, see a cement truck, a backhoe, an excavator, all this stuff like you just want to play with. And it is entertaining. But you're like looking around, you're like, this is just what's normal now. It's so bizarre. So here's the thing. I want to talk a little bit about, I hate that. That's my least favorite thing to say. I want to tell me a little bit about that. I need to learn not to say that. I would cut this out, but it's just the way it is. I recently went to Kentucky to drive the new Ford Expedition. And I went there with a couple friends because one of the best things about my job is that I have colleagues who are very, very close friends. So Chris Amos, the Topher, and Chris Brower, Topher drives. Not the same Topher. Topher is different, the two Tophers. But two of my closest friends, they live out in Michigan. And so when we do these press events, a lot of times we're able to schedule them at the same time so we get to see each other. And one of the best things about this was I had some time off after this event. So the goal was they were going to drive from Michigan to Kentucky in Chris Amos's Camaro SS1LE. He just bought this from a friend, Mike, who, like, honestly, impeccable taste. Blue, beautiful. It's a 2SS. The thing's so sick. And then Brower had a press car. He had a Ford Mustang, like a yellow 5-liter automatic 10-speed. Don't hold it against him. But anyway, so they were just kind of doing a comparison between the two cars. And they brought those down, and then we were going to go do our press trip in Kentucky and then drive the two cars back to Michigan. But while we're on the press trip, we're driving this Ford Expedition. And I am a little bit of I've become like sort of a GM loyalist in a light way. Mostly because of Team Champagne Ninjas. He's kind of indoctrinated me into this because he has these gorgeous GMT 400 trucks at Garage 42. I just drove his Lingenfelter 9.9 liter Suburban. It's a 2500. It's like the coolest thing. And I just find so much charm in these vehicles, especially in modern day. And they drive really well even today. I think that's something that always shocks me, is that like I get in and it's almost less work than driving my Lexus, which is a 2023 model year. And then I get into this Ford. It's a totally different setup, right? We're talking twin turbo EcoBoost V6. We're talking Ford switchgear. We're talking I'm a Ford. When you get in, the little chime. It's all these little things that for whatever reason sometimes like add up to me being like, ugh, I don't know if I like this, right? So we start driving it. It's all screens. They've kind of adapted the Lincoln Navigator screen setup, but in a lesser way. The Navigator has the screen that goes all the way across the dashboard. This kind of splits the difference. So it's short and low, kind of like a Prius, like a new Prius, but it's got more information, and then you've got another screen in the middle. But in order for you to be visibly seeing this screen, they've had to chop the steering wheel. So the steering wheel is now this like almost yoke. It's very oval and oblong. So imagine you've just taken the top and bottom of a wheel and crushed it down. So it's flat on the top and bottom and flat on the sides. And then you've got this thing, which objectively not a big deal. It's just a little weird hand over hand because the wheel isn't a wheel, right? It's not a circle. So your hand has to change the radius from the center as you go hand over hand if you're going to be grabbing a different side of the steering wheel. Very odd, but you get used to it pretty quickly, and clearly polarizing via the comments. Now, as we started driving this, I'm thinking, okay, like this is fine, but I'm a Suburban guy. I'm a Yukon guy. I'm a Tahoe guy. I don't know about all this. And the more I'm driving it, the more I'm like, this thing's nuts. Like, what they can do with these large, full-size, body-on-frame SUVs now is absolutely crazy. Because, sure, you pull out of your hotel in a city in Louisville and go on the highway, put on the Blue Cruise, which phenomenal. And honestly, I think the new version of Blue Cruise is like superior to everybody right now. This is so good. It's so good. It doesn't ping pong in your lanes whatsoever. It allows you to actually grab the steering wheel, steer it away from a pothole or an obstacle within the lane, and then it doesn't cancel the Blue Cruise. It just allows you to make your adjustment in it, and you can let go, and it will readjust and go back. And it also made incredibly confident lane changes. We'll get back to this in a second because I had a Yukon very shortly after this. But this Expedition has a static suspension. It doesn't have some fancy air ride or mag ride or any of this stuff. It's just like, look, this is the suspension. It was compliant. It boogied on back roads, and it was fun. Traction control like never stepped in. I was just genuinely blown away by this new generation of these SUVs, and it makes it make sense that people like driving these because they do drive well. It is no longer the difference between like, oh, I was going to get like a 7 Series BMW in 1998 or like a Tahoe. Now you can drive a like a big SUV, and it drives like a car to an extent. But that was genuinely very impressive. And the transmission tune was amazing. But I was still like, well, I don't know. I'm a suburban guy. So I get back and when I got home, it was around that time that I got a press loaner from GM, and I got this Yukon. It's a Denali Ultimate. It has night vision. It's got mag ride with the air suspension. It's got, all the bells and whistles, massaging seats, and not just like on-off massaging seats. I'm talking like 5 different settings. Do you want it to pulse? Do you want it to wave? Do you want it to like roll? Anything you want, like this seat will do. It's pretty bonkers what these cars are capable of in terms of creature comfort. The rear seats have like touch screens that are like compatible with YouTube and HBO. And it's nuts what like the family vehicle has become. They are rolling living rooms, and it has a slightly more traditional dashboard and steering wheel. And it's more familiar. But what I noticed was it was not nearly as plush as far as suspension as that Expedition. And I was like, man, it was just the opposite of what I was thinking. And this is another reason why you got to test drive everything, because you can look at a spec and say, oh, well, it has magnetic ride control and has air suspension and this and this and this and this, and that Ford just has some static suspension. Like, I preferred the Ford, and that's not usual for me. And I was like, holy cow, this thing really is impressive. In addition to that, I love Super Cruise, but I was very rarely directly comparing it to any other system other than like a Tesla or something in recent memory. And having come straight off of Blue Cruise, going into the Super Cruise on this Yukon, I gotta say, like, the Super Cruise is behind a little bit. It's not negative. It's not bad. It's just that there is a noticeable difference in the confidence that Blue Cruise has over Super Cruise right now. And that could change in a day. It could have changed yesterday. I wouldn't know, because it's, you can do updates for these things, but just food for thought. The big family vehicles have come a long way. I don't necessarily know that it's the answer though. Because I'm sick of like not being able to park certain places because cars are too big. I'm sick of thinking like, oh, if I get T-boned by this like texting person blowing through a red light in their 10,000 pound consumer vehicle, like it's lights out for me if I'm out on a test drive in like a Porsche 356 or something. It's just such a bummer. And I hope that we can look at cars, like literal cars, not CUVs, not SUVs, cars, as viable, useful tools for us to use for the family vehicle, because we've gotten so spoiled by the idea that like, oh, I just open this giant barn door of a hatch and throw all my stuff in there, and off I go. Where it's like, well, you had space in the car too. You still could have fit the baby seat in the 7 Series or the 5 Series or the 3 Series. Everything's big now. It all works. And honestly, some of the little SUVs don't work. I remember my friend had an Alfa Stelvio and he couldn't fit the baby seat in the back and put someone in the front passenger seat in front of that baby seat without like crushing their knees against the dashboard. So food for thought. Just keep your eyes out for the cars. And for those of you who are still daily driving an actual car, good on you. More of that. It does feel like that's kind of a thing that's going away. We even treat the cars as something that's a bit of a weekender, and I'm guilty of that. Okay, so back to Garage 42 in my fleet. I got to take the M5 out. I am just doing a little shakedown, and then Edwin is going to help me go through and kind of assess what's going on with the suspension. It's old, okay? The car's from 2001. It's going to need a little bit of love, and I don't think it needs much. I might be able to get away with just some struts because, I mean, look, springs do not degrade unless they rust or break, but you're not going to like lose your K constant on a spring over time. So as long as those springs are good, I should be able to just throw in a set of Coney Yellow Sports and adjust them to the way I want them and call it a day. But it's hard to find this stuff. I mean, FCP Euro is usually a very good place to hunt down all of the stuff you need for all of your cars. It's what I've used forever, and I still use them. But there's very few like options outside of pretty stiff setups for these cars on FCP Euro, because I was looking at them and they've got Bilstein B8s, they've got Bilstein PSS 9s and PSS 10s, or whatever they are, the B14 and B16 coilovers. I don't want to go with a coilover on this car. It doesn't make any sense for me. I'm never going to adjust it. I just kind of want to set, forget, and if it's a little stiffer than stock, great. That's all it needs to be. Doesn't need to be anything fancy. And I'm finding like, man, like where are the days when you could just go on and buy some Coney Yellows? And even the old school setup that everyone loved to do is the dine-in lowering springs with the Coney Yellows. And even on ECS tuning, like they sell that as a kit, but no longer with the Coneys. They sell it as a kit with the Bilstein B8s, which they say is because they prefer the ride quality of that. However, I just wonder if that has something to do with availability, margins, or just the fact that they have a better arrangement with Bilstein and they're like, well, yeah, we can sell this as a kit together. And from everything I've read, and this is the trauma of picking anything for your cars, is you start reading forums and everyone tells you what you should do. And who knows who's telling you this? Could be some idiot kid in his I don't know what these people's experience are with suspension, but like, oh, it's too stiff. Oh, it's too soft. Oh, it's too. This is why I have inaction sometimes just becomes so much easier than action, because you read 100 things and you decide all the things you don't want. But this is why we have to just bite the bullet and do things. And I'm going to do that with this car. We got to do some brake work too, because it's been a long time. They're not failing or anything like that, but we got to just refresh the old girl, get her up to snuff. And this summer, the goal is to do more drives, do more adventures with my own stuff, and maybe with other people's stuff. That's fine too. But other than just the simple, okay, I'm going on a photo shoot and I'll review the car along the way, which is typically what I'm doing. But anytime you make a big life change, it feels like a big life change for a while. So for me, that was quitting my corporate job and moving into the YouTube space and making this my business. And over time, I managed to make my business basically a corporate job. It's not a 9 to 5. It's more of like an 11 to midnight. But I needed to like structure myself. I needed to make sure I had some steady income. But then comes now it's scary to take risks again, because the whole game at the beginning was a risk. But once you kind of settle into comfortable income where you're like, okay, good, I've got steady like freelance work doing this, I've got steady YouTube money doing this is how I'm doing it. You kind of settle in and like you grow and it's steady and stable. But like, I do think there's always another time where you've walked along this new plateau for long enough. You've got to jump up to the next level, and maybe you fall, but maybe the next level is higher when you climb back out of it. So what I'm trying to do right now is be less afraid to take chances, to do things outside of the scope of what I've built for myself. Because when I think about the car content that I really enjoy watching, it's like Harry's Garage. I love watching Harry Metcalf go on these adventures. He takes his 930S out to, Spain and Italy and Germany and Austria or Switzerland, wherever he's doing. Or his Testarossa to Morocco, or his Lamborghini Countach to Italy, all these amazing road trips in his cars. He's not afraid of the miles. He's just maintaining the cars. His odometer doesn't seem to be a mark of value. His odometer seems to be a mark of service. When do I need to go back to the shop, right? When does it need an oil change? When is it going to need a tune-up? That's such a liberating way to live. And I know money matters on that front, but we can do these things on our scales. We can do these things on lower scales. We don't have to do them with our Countach. We can do them with our BMW or our Honda. And I genuinely think that this is the thing that I love the most, is kind of getting away, doing something elsewhere. And the joy I typically find in a car or in a place that brings me real honest feelings of like, wow, awe, the sense of awe in these types of places, that I think translates so well to video. And I'm not trying to just monetize my joy, but the reality is you can have both. You can do both things. And I get the luxury of being able to kind of take a quote unquote vacation while also working in a way that's fun. And I think if I'm having fun, the viewer's having fun, we're all having fun, and it culminates into something good. So one of the ways this is going down is, I don't know if I should be talking about this so early, but maybe I won't give all the details yet, but Chris, Amos, and I, the Topher, are going on a pretty extensive off-road camping trip at the end of July. And we're going to be taking his Ranger Raptor on some Firestone off-road all-terrain tires. And we're going to go drive from Michigan to Wyoming on a 4-day excursion, full-blown poop in a hole, that kind of thing. And I cannot wait. And also, I'm so excited because it is odd. I have a lot of friends here, obviously in New England, because this is where I live. But a lot of times those are friends that for the most part, we see each other for lunch, dinner, maybe Sunday morning for F1, and okay, great, hugs, bye. And they're these are close people. I don't mean to diminish that. But it is interesting when you have friends who you live far away from, because when you see them, it's typically for a very specific purpose. And when I go out with the Topher, a lot of times we're on a proper adventure, Top Gear style, we are out in it. And you have this weird level of bonding with these people where you do go on these wild adventures, and maybe it's only a couple times a year, but there's a closeness that occurs through that. And there's a problem-solving dynamic that occurs through that. There's a level of trust that goes on there. And I just find that to be fascinating, to be able to have friends who are kind of far away, who you do these wild trips with, or just have these experiences with. And despite the fact that you maybe only see them for a week, a year, 2 weeks a year, they become some of the closest people in your life. And I love that feeling. I love that feeling of knowing that I've got someone I can rely on that isn't necessarily in my backyard. And also maybe that contributes to it, because you don't lean on them for dumb bullshit. I don't have to call him to ask hey, can you help me move something at the house? Maybe that's actually more of a healthy way to have friends. So sorry for this being sort of a hodgepodge of thoughts and ideas here, but it's what's on my mind. And this is how my brain works, unfortunately. And this is why I don't record as much as I'd like to, because I always have a snippet of an idea that I'm ooh, I want to talk about that on a podcast. But I'm that's not 60 minutes. That's not enough to make a full-fledged thing about. And if it was, it would be too long and it'd be boring. And I don't want to dive that deep into that topic. I just want to have the food for thought and walk away from it. And again, this is, I think, what keeps me from driving my my cars, because sometimes I'm thinking, oh, well, the M5 needs a battery, it needs windshield wipers, it needs the little windshield wiper relay fuse thing, it needs a little fender liner thing. We should probably then get into the Porsche and do transmission fluid. We should do, this and this and this and this and this. And I instead of just doing one thing at a time, instead of just saying, okay, let's take one car and do 2 or 3 things, I think of all of it, and then I do none of it. And I need to just slow it down and go piece by piece and keep up with the things that I need to keep up with. And this has been the most difficult thing for me in my personal life, in my professional life, in every aspect of my life, is like the paralyzing feeling you get when there's too much to do and then you just do something else, which thank God I don't have some like alcohol or drug habit and I just go to the gym instead, because, and you may not notice it because all 132 pounds of me doesn't really scream gym bro, but I do keep it tight. Okay. All right. I'm out there. But like, I can imagine how much of a friggin' K-hole you'd get into if you had a drug habit. In being like looking at your 4 cars and thinking, how am I going to do all of this? But just one thing at a time. So today is one of those one thing at a time things where I'm going to take the M5 out, drive it around, get some fluids moving, talk to Edwin, make a game plan, and we're probably going to buy some shit by the end of the day. That's the goal. Anyway, I know this is a short one. I just wanted to get on the mic, say hello, say what I want to say, talk about some of the things that have been going on. And I hope you've got some good summer plans. I'm going to keep you posted on what I'm doing, and I'm going to try to bring you along on stuff. I'm curious who wants to see some sort of like hybrid videos where I drive something with the bike and then go biking somewhere, because one of the best things about cycling is it can take you places that you just cannot get by car. Not just saying like, oh, a bike path that's near a major roadway that keeps you off the major roadway. Obviously, very nice to have that option. But there are bike paths out in places that just you cannot drive. You cannot go to these places. And it is so liberating to get on a bike where you're having fun, being fit, getting your heart rate up, and seeing terrain and play. Like, this is what it was like out in Provincetown this weekend, last week, because I got to go through the dunes. It's still off season. There's not a lot of people out there right now. And it was just empty. I had the whole place to myself. I had the whole beach. I had miles and miles and miles of trails on what looks like an otherworldly planet, just to me, just to myself. And I got to just enjoy that. Get out of your element a little bit if you can. You don't need to break the bank. You don't need to do the Instagram vacation of Mykonos. You don't need to go somewhere that's just like a resort that's, oh shit, like this would be fun if I wasn't spending $12,000 on this package for a few days right now. Just go somewhere. And this is where, how about this plug? This is where the Walden camper van guys come in, because that's not going to break the bank. You can go off the beaten path and bring stuff like bikes or whatever the heck you want, hiking gear, and then go even further off the beaten path and not feel like you had to go do all the unhealthy drinking and getting sunburned and all that shit. So that's it. That's all I have. I don't know. I just need to make more of these. They're not all going to be gold, baby, but we're going to have the conversations. I'm going to have more people on, and I want to keep doing the and another thing type of rant, and I'm going to offer that opportunity to all my guests, because I think everybody has something that they're pissed about, whether it's a left lane hog or potholes or texting and driving or screens or non-walkable cities, or, I mean, there's just, the list is ever long. Not a Foo Fighters reference, but now it is, I suppose. Anyway, thank you guys so much for listening. Thanks to Garage 42 for hosting the space, because I love this podcast studio. It's a beautiful day. I got to go start up my S62. Probably going to tap a little bit. These things, S62s, man, I'm already rambling again. S62s, every time they sit for too long, they always have that lifter tick, and then they pump up and then they're good to go. So whether it's an M5 or a Z8, they will do that. But yeah, thanks for watching the videos. Thanks for listening to this. Thank you for being a good Respect the Drive citizen out there. And I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.